Hey there, you're listening to the Caitlin Batcher Show, and in today's episode, we are going to dig deep into what it really takes to scale a multi-million-dollar online course business, and I'm going to share the truth about why your revenue is stuck. If you are under the impression that in order to scale up, the best thing to do is to double down on what's working for you now, then today's episode is going to be a major wake-up call. There are important steps that must be implemented at each level of success in order to quickly scale your business, whether it's from 0 to 10K a month, or to go from 10K to 100K per month, or to go from 100K to 300K per month. If you are experiencing a plateau in revenue at any of these levels, your sales and marketing might not be the problem. Today's episode will help you pinpoint exactly what's missing from your current business strategy right now, and it's keeping you stuck. So stay tuned. My name is Caitlin Batcher, creator of Scale with Success, and I'm on a mission to help course creators all over the world grow their business in a way that is profitable and scalable. Join me here each week for revealing conversations about what it really takes to scale an online course business to millions of dollars per year without sacrificing date nights with your partner, vacation with your kids, or spa days for yourself. You'll discover the tough decisions I've had to make, the biggest failures I've had to bounce back from, and the learnings that emerged every step of the way. I am so grateful that I have the chance to share it all with you right here on the Caitlin Batcher Show. Let's get started. So today's topic, mistakes and mindset traps to avoid at every level of success, is really an important one because the truth is that at each level of success, you will be required to focus, to let go of the things that you previously focused on to get you here, and you'll have to focus on something new, right? And then once you get to that level, you have to let go of what you just focused on in order to get to the next level. So it's like what happens a lot of times is our revenue becomes stuck because we keep focusing on the same things, right? We're still in there trying to update our webinar registration page and we're making 200K a year and we're thinking, why? How come my revenue's not growing? Well, guess what? It has nothing to do with your webinar registration page. So we are going to get into that today. So I'm super, super excited. So as you guys know, there are levels to managing your emotions and measuring your results. So those are the two things that $1 million CEO needs to be focused on: managing their emotions and measuring their results. And during the last CEO Corner, we talked about the fact that at every level of success, there are going to be different things to focus on. And the topic of this presentation today is that I wanted to call out some of those common mistakes, some of the common mental traps that are at each specific level. So before we get into that, and I'm going to be covering it if you're at the 0 to 10K per month level, and then I'm going to cover it for if you're at the 10K to 100K per month level, and then I'm also going to cover it if you're at the 100K to 300K per month level. So there's different mental traps at each level and different mistakes to avoid at each level. So I'm going to be covering those today. But before I do, I wanted to share a little story with you. And it's a story of my first $1 million year. So in 2017, as some of you guys know, I was selling a little known Facebook group course. It was a course all about how to start and grow a profitable Facebook group. And in 2017, that was the year I decided that I was going to generate $1 million in revenue. And that was the year that I made it happen. Now, I want to show you kind of the behind the scenes, the story of that, because I want for you to walk away from this feeling encouraged and inspired, because a lot of times people feel like success is not possible if they're not seeing results right away. And as you can see, at this point, I had already been in business for a few years, right? And I had this main course that I was selling, which was all about Facebook groups. And in 2017, I was like, this is it. This is going to be my $1 million a year. And in January of that year that I decided I was going to make $1 million, I sold 9 copies of it, guys. It was not a great start, right? You know, $1 million a year, that's like $80,000 a month. And I was off to a pretty slow start. By the time that June rolled around, I had had some other successes, but I was still only at 10% of my annual goal. So I had set an annual goal to make $1 million that year. And by June, halfway through the year, I was only at $149,000. That was it. That was like a little bit more than 10% of my goal, right? Pretty far away. And what I want to call out to you is that at that time, I felt pretty frustrated. And I was beginning to really wonder if my $1 million year was ever going to happen. I want you to look at this chart and to see all of the places I could have given up, all the weeks that went by, all the days that went by when I was not making any sales. Each one of those red arrows I could have given up, right? I set this big, hairy, scary goal. I want to make $1 million this year. And there were a ton of places where I could have given up. At each point, even look in April, I had a big spike, but then look, then it was nothing. It was no sales, like for weeks. I could have made that mean, well, I guess I've exhausted all my customers. I guess nobody else in the world wants to buy a Facebook group course, right? But I didn't. I kept going. Despite the fact that I had plenty I could have chosen to make meaning from each one of those days that went by where I was not getting any sales, I could have made it mean that I was going to fail, but I chose a different meaning, right? I chose to make it mean that each day I was just getting one step closer to my goal. And I was feeling really frustrated at that time. And I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but I'm a big fan of like writing motivational stuff on Post-its. And so at that time, I had a little Post-it on my laptop. My workstation was in my bedroom because we had a tiny apartment. And so I worked a lot of times just on my bed because we didn't have a lot of room. So I had that little laptop and I had on my Post-it, there was a 10X. And I was so frustrated at my results. I was so frustrated with, being really focused on like, I want to 10X this, I want to 10X this, and not being able to do it, that I crumpled up that little Post-it note and I just threw it straight in the garbage. I was so incredibly frustrated and I replaced it with something different. And what I wrote down was, I am enough. And what you need to understand is that I had spent so much time beating myself up about every little mistake, about every little failure that I was making as I went upon my 10X journey. Right? I was beating myself up for every single little thing, and it was causing me to not grow. It was causing me to feel defeated, to feel like things were going slow, to feel stuck. And the reality was that I had this thing playing in the background of my head, in my subconscious, that was like, I'm not enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And I knew that the only way that I was going to be able to get to that $1 million goal that year, it was not going to be by beating myself up even more. It was not going to happen because I was harder on myself. It was only going to happen if I started to build momentum by feeling good. And so I put that on that Post-it note. I remember I wrote, I am enough. And I replaced that 10X thing with this one. And what you can see here is that I increased my monthly revenue by 600% in 6 months. Okay. Obviously, I can't promise these results, but what I'm showing you right here is that it took a while for me to build momentum, right? I would be running my webinars and things would be good and then no sales. And then I'd run it and no sales. And I'd try an ad thing and it would work and then it would not work, right? It was very much up and down. And within the first 6 months of 2017, January through July, I had made $149,000. July through December, I made $895,000. That is a huge increase. And you can see the increase wasn't caused by these like big giant spikes. It was me being able to really have that slow build of momentum. And by the end of 2017, I did meet my goal and I had my first $1 million year. And what I want to call out to you guys is right now, we are in August. Okay, we are in August. If you have felt like the first half of your year has not been what you wanted it to be, you have an option, right? You can choose to give up. You can choose to make it mean that success is not possible for you, or you can choose to believe that you are enough. So by December of that year, I was selling over 100 courses per month. And my results didn't change because I hired some kind of unicorn ads manager or I implemented a magical hashtag strategy. Everyone thinks it's a shiny new marketing strategy, right? Like even Debbie, she's like, did your strategy change? No, my strategy didn't change. It just took time to build momentum. And a lot of people are not willing to wait that time because we live in a society where we're taught if we don't get results instantly, that means something bad about us. But it's not true. And if you look at over here, my results changed because I learned how to better manage my emotions and I stopped playing the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer role. The whole first half of the year, I'm beating myself up. I'm playing the victim. Oh no, this person over here has such a good webinar conversion rate. Mine will never be that bad, right? I'm playing the persecutor. I'm blaming, it's my ads manager's fault. It's my team member's fault. It's my coach's fault. It's this course's fault. It's this customer's fault. It's my audience's fault for not buying. Blaming everyone. I'm casting tons of blame on myself and I'm casting tons of blame on other people. That's not going to get you anywhere. And once I made the decision to stop doing that, because it is a choice, it doesn't just happen automatically. It's a choice. Once I made the decision to stop behaving that way and to figure out how I was going to manage my emotions and measure my results, then I started to get results. I learned how to start tracking things in a KPI sheet, which I had never done before. I was always so terrified to even open my bank account. I used to cry before every single monthly meeting with my bookkeeper back then because I was like, God, this is so depressing. Like money made me so nervous. I had to get over that. And what I want you guys to understand is that I didn't encounter fewer problems in July through December. There were actually way more problems, and those problems were a lot bigger because I'm spending a lot of money on ads, right? The difference wasn't that I had fewer problems, the problems increased, but because I was learning how to manage my emotions and measure my results, I experienced less stress just because I chose a different response. Because I made the decision that I was going to stop playing a victim, that I was going to stop blaming others, that I was going to stop worrying about what everyone else was doing, and I was just going to stay focused on what I needed to do. If someone else was out there doing something different, fine, go do something different. I was solely focused on what I needed to do in order to get where I wanted to go. I stopped chasing shiny strategies and I went all in with evergreen automated webinars. And the most difficult part of scaling in your business is not adding, it's subtracting. It's figuring out what you need to do in order to let go again and again and again. I want you to think about that. If you're climbing a mountain, if you keep piling more things into your backpack, you're going to get there a lot slower. It's going to be painful. And to be honest, you're probably not going to get there at all. It's all about letting go and focusing on what are those core strategies? What are the core things that I need to be doing consistently organically? What are the core things that I need to be doing consistently with paid traffic? And really focusing on that. So what I want to ask you right now is, what is the real reason that your business isn't 10x bigger than it is right now? What are those personal mindset beliefs, the bad habits that you have right now that are preventing you from having a business right now that is 10x bigger? And I want for you to write it down. You need to call that out. For me, at that time, it was that I was not enough. That's what I believed. I believed that there was something wrong with me, that I was not worthy of success. I was not smart enough to make it happen. That's the messaging that I was telling myself. So what I want to invite you to do is to really think about for a minute, what is the real reason that your business isn't 10x bigger than it is right now? And spoiler alert, it's not an ads manager. It's not that, right? We're talking about what are those bad habits that you have? What are the beliefs that you have that are not serving you? What is the mindset that you have? As you guys saw in my journey, there were a lot of times when I was making no sales and I could have made that mean that nobody wanted my offer, right? Sometimes people believe that they don't have enough time, right? I can tell you right now, if you feel like you don't have enough time, you don't have a time issue, you have a priority issue, and you're focused on the wrong things, and you're spending a lot of time worrying as opposed to focusing on those very few things that you need to be taking action on. So what I want you to do now that you've called out the belief that you want to let go of the bad habit that you want to let go of the negative mindset that you want to let go of, now I want you to replace it with the opposite of that. And I want you to write it down on a Post-it note. If you believe that nobody wants your offer, then I want you to write down, there are millions of people out there right now that want my offer. I want you to put the opposite of whatever that negative emotion or negative belief was, right? That's what I want for you to write down. You have to put that in a place where it's visible so that you can see it every day. You're not going to get to the $1 million mountain by beating yourself up. You're going to get there by encouraging yourself. You're going to get there by focusing on what you're doing right, by learning from your mistakes and moving forward. Beating yourself up, blaming others, that's not going to get you anywhere. It's a choice that we make to engage in that kind of behavior. So what I want to do right now is to get into these 3 core things when it comes to thinking about your steps to success. So those things are mental traps, where to focus, and critical mistakes. So you can see here that I've identified 3 different income levels, right? You have 0 to 10K per month, or maybe you're at 10K to 100K per month, or maybe you're at 100K per month to 300K per month. There are different mental traps at each level, and there are different things to focus on at each level. And there are different critical mistakes at each level. And so it's important that we understand what those mistakes might be so that we can avoid them, and we understand what we need to focus on, because what you focus on to get to your first 10K per month in business is not what you need to focus on in order to get to your first 100K per month in business. And I see this all the time. In my Altitude Mastermind, people are going from 10K per month to 100K per month. And they're doing it right now in the midst of this pandemic thing. We have people that are experiencing right now their first 100K months, not once, but consistently. And they're playing a very different game. They are focused on different things than they were in order to get themselves to 10K per month. So the first thing that we have over here is mental traps to avoid if you are at this $0 to $10,000 per month. So we're going to dig into the mental traps that you need to avoid. So the first mental trap to avoid is, what if this never works? Of course, it makes sense that if you're starting something new and you're in those very beginning stages from $0 to $10,000 per month, you will have the thought at some point, probably at multiple points if you're normal, what if this never works? Just because you have that thought doesn't mean it's true. Because guess what? I've had that thought a bajillion times. I've had that thought a million times when I was first starting my business journey. What if this never works? That's normal. Just because you have the thought doesn't mean that it's true. That's totally normal. If a baby's learning to walk, they're like, what if I never learn to walk? You don't think that, right? Like it's going to happen. The second mental trap that I see a lot of people that are in this income range focus on is, what if I disappoint someone? They are actually scared of becoming more visible because they're scared someone's going to sign up for their course and they're going to be upset. And they're going to say, oh, I don't like this course, or I don't like this PDF. I think you're a scammer. I think your method is totally wrong. I never get results with anything, right? You're nervous that you're going to disappoint someone. Again, that is totally common. Just because you're nervous about disappointing someone, well, first of all, that's just life, right? We disappoint people all the time. We have no control over whether someone chooses to feel disappointed as a result of something that we have done. I can literally create a PDF. I can give it the same PDF to two different people. One person will choose to complain and to be disappointed in me, and the other person will be like, oh, awesome, thanks. And they'll make use of it and get going. We all have students like that. That's normal. But you can't halt your growth. You can't not put yourself out there because you're worried you will disappoint someone. You will. I guarantee you will disappoint someone. And the third thing is, what if I'm not good enough? What if business success is possible for everyone else, for everyone I see all around me, but for some reason, because I have a weird mole on my forehead or whatever, or I have a really long toenail, or who knows what. Whatever the reason is, you feel like for that particular reason, success is not possible for you, because deep down, like the hidden secret is that you're not good enough, which is not true. And I know it's not true because I used to believe that I wasn't good enough. I used to constantly beat myself up and tell myself, oh, you're not good enough. This is not good enough. Your performance isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. I had to decide to let it go. Nobody is going to come down and tell you, you are good enough. It's okay. Keep going. Nobody's going to do that for you. You have to decide. You have to decide that you are good enough, even though there's going to be a lot of people around you that are saying that you're not good enough. So what? Just because they think you're not good enough doesn't mean that you're not good enough. Are you literally going to give all of your power away to some stranger on the internet? Of course not. Why would you do that? So where to focus? If you are in that first income level of 0 to 10K per month, you need to really nail your offer, okay? What it is that you're selling, you need to be able to describe it in a way that communicates the value of what you're selling. You need to be able to describe it. And that takes practice, just like learning how to walk, right? Just because it doesn't work out the first time, you don't then tell yourself, well, now I'm just going to give up and never learn to walk, right? It takes time. It takes time to nail your offer, right? The second thing is get visible. During this time period, you need to be getting as visible as possible. Now, for some of you, going live once a week is enough. If you're at this level and you are literally starting from scratch with your audience, you got to bump it up, right? You need to start going live a lot more. You need to be on Instagram or in your Facebook group or in your Facebook page or whatever, commenting, like interacting with people. You need to get on some podcasts. You have an evergreen webinar. You can give an affiliate the link to that webinar so that they can start promoting it to their audiences and they can start learning about you. It's all about visibility, right? If you have an offer, that's great. If you're in this income range and you're feeling stuck, it's because you're not visible enough. You need to get more visible. And the next thing to focus on is to figure out a system for generating leads and sales consistently. Now listen, here's what happens to a lot of people, okay? A lot of people are able to make it past 10K per month. So maybe they're making 20K per month. Maybe they're making 15K per month. And they have still not yet generated leads or sales consistently. They don't have a system, a method for doing it consistently in the way that we teach. That eventually catches up with you, right? So if you're someone who has, maybe it's because you've only been live launching, or maybe it's because you rely on sales calls all the time. If you've been really pushing yourself and you get to that 20K per month, and then you start trying to automate leads and sales, your income might drop initially. That's because you're starting something new, right? You're starting something new. Yeah, you're selling the same thing, but you're selling it in a different way. So you're not entitled to just keep growing month after month after month. Like it takes a little bit of time, right? And sometimes you start off with a bang, and sometimes it's a little bit flat at first and then it goes up. But the point is that it's in order to make sure that you are fully complete with step number 1, you have to really focus on those 3 things. Those are the 3 things, right? Notice on here, making a pretty website, not on there. Nope. Making a pretty website has nothing to do with getting visible. It's not going to help you nail your offer. It's not going to help you generate leads and sales, right? We want to make sure that we're focused on only these 3 things. The critical mistakes that people make at this level are, number 1, not being specific in your offer. So if you're telling people, I have a gardening course, well, who's it for? What kind of gardening? Vegetable gardening, floral gardening? Is it for professional people who enter like rose shows every year? Like, who's it for? Be specific. The second thing is not being visible, where you're just hoping you're doing the absolute minimum because you're nervous about showing up. Maybe it's your fear of criticism. Maybe it's fear of not being perfect, whatever it is. You're not being visible. That's a huge mistake. You need to get as visible as possible if you're in this income bracket. And the third thing is not focusing on your own path. Okay. That means you should not be comparing your results to someone else's. You should not be worried about what someone else is or isn't doing. If someone else is choosing to complain, leave them alone. Just because someone else is unhappy doesn't mean that you have to join in that unhappiness. You have a lot of people around you. You might have business besties in your own life, or you might have other family members or whatever that are going to be in your ear saying different things. You have to be able to close that off, and you need to remain focused on what you're doing. Don't worry about what they're doing. If someone is telling you, well, I've always hated automated webinars, so what? Who cares? You're focused on completing what you set out to do. What you want to do in order to get to the second level, which is 10K per month to 100K per month, in order to get to that level, you first need to make sure that you've nailed your offer, you're focusing on getting visible, you're generating leads and sales consistently, and then you can proceed to the next level after you've been getting 10K plus per month consistently. So the people that are in my mastermind are all people that they were already generating 10K plus per month consistently. They already had that going on, and so they were ready to focus on the next level of thing. If you're just getting started, this is all you need to focus on. If you're in that 0 to 10K income bracket, nail your offer, get visible, generate leads and sales consistently. That's it. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about creating multiple offers. Don't worry about writing a book. I don't know. Don't worry about any of that, right? Just focus on those top 3 things. So step 2, if you are in this income bracket, if you are in the 10K to 100K income bracket, the first mental trap that I see people encounter when they're at this stage, 10K to 100K, is, am I ready to build a team? Now, when I'm talking about building a team, I don't mean that you work occasionally with a graphic designer, and sometimes you work with a copywriter, and sometimes you have like a contractor VA that helps you do this or that. I'm not talking about that. That's not a team. That's like project specific. What I'm talking about is building a real team. And there's a lot of confusion about who you need to hire, what you need to hire for. One of the most dangerous mistakes that I see people make in this income level is actually that they're overspending on their team. Sometimes I start working with someone, their team is bigger than mine. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why do you have so many people on your team? But I get it, because I was there too once. And the reality is that at this stage, you do not need a big team, but you need a small, incredibly efficient team. If you have someone on your team that's not performing, if you have someone on your team, you have to micromanage every single little detail. That's not going to work, because then you're doing double the work. Second mental trap to avoid at this level is, what do I need to do? So it's like people, they start to get their first kind of glimpse of, I don't know if you want to call it like time freedom, maybe, right? Because their business is starting to take off. They're starting to get some traction. And all of a sudden they're like, what do I need to do? Like they start to have kind of more time on their plate, and they start sort of like freaking out, right? And they're like, I don't know what do I do with my time now? how do I spend time being a CEO? Like everyone goes through this, right? And they're like, am I focusing on the right things? What do I need to do? Like totally normal inside of this income bracket. And the third thing that we hear a lot is, why is this so hard? And the reason why a lot of times it feels so hard is because you are focused on the wrong things. You're still focused on what you had to focus on to get to 10K. So you're still just hyper-focused on visibility, and you're still focused on nailing your offer, and you're still focused on being specific. We get it. Those were great things to get you to where you are now, but now we need to take you to the next level. And in order to do that, your focus has to change. And so it feels hard because your focus is not where it needs to be. So where to focus? Number one, build your team. And you need to make sure that you're doing this the right way. You need to make sure that you're building your team in a way that it's not a system where you're that center, like at the middle of the wheel, and then you have all of these people around. You got like 10 different people or whatever that you're managing, and it's exhausting. And then you can't be in the seat. If you're doing that, you're being a manager, you're not being a CEO. And so being able to really get clear on what is the structure, the people structure that I'm going to build that is going to power my business forward, because it can't be just you, and it can't be you at the center as the bottleneck with all these people coming out around you. The second thing you have to think about at this stage is how to train your team. You're training your team to think independently. If you are constantly rescuing your team members, if you're doing things for them because you think it's easier to do it yourself than to teach them how to do it, that's not training your team. If you feel like you're training your team and you feel like you have to keep re-explaining the same things over and over, that's not necessarily a team member issue, that's a you issue. Because somewhere along the line, if you are doing something over and over, they're clearly not understanding what needs to happen, right? It's not, the task itself is not being explained, and there's a huge chance that they're not clear on what the outcome that you're trying to create is, and they don't have context for why that outcome is important. And it's your job as the CEO to provide that to them. The third thing is to create team accountability. This is all about ownership. Imagine having someone on your team whose sole focus was to grow your Instagram followers. That's all they were focused on. Your Instagram followers and engagement and webinar registrants, all related to Instagram, right? And that's just like, they were fully focused on that. And that was their only job. That would be amazing. But what happens is if people in your business are not clear on what their specific success metrics are, if there's not a clear line of who they are reporting to, because everyone cannot report to you, that's going to be a nightmare to manage. And it's going to cause you to restrict your growth because it's painful. If you're managing everyone, that's very painful. And you're not going to want to make a new hire because you're like, oh, if I make a new hire, now I'm going to have to train this person and whatever. Critical mistakes to avoid during this income bracket, 10K to 100K. Number one, not building team structure. So pretty much it's just you, and then you have a few contractors. That's not a team structure. That's great that you've learned how to delegate and to hire someone, but that's not what's going to get you from 10K to 100K. That's not what's going to get you there. The second thing is not creating team accountability, where your team members don't have a clear outcome that they're trying to create. Like 9 times out of 10, if I go and talk to your team and I'm like, what are you accountable for? They're not going to even know. They're going to give me a to-do list. They're going to say, well, I'm supposed to let the Facebook group members in, and I'm supposed to post to Instagram, and I'm supposed to make a new cover image for the Facebook group. But that's not accountability. That's a to-do list. What is the outcome of that? What outcome is each team member responsible for? And the third thing is avoiding difficult conversations. Many of us have been taught that conflict is bad, right? And some of us even have trauma around that, right? Based on however we grew up, we might have grown up in environments where the only conflict, the main conflict that we saw was incredibly violent or emotionally abusive or whatever it is. But the reality is that conflict is good. Conflict is healthy. You have to be able to engage in those difficult conversations without getting into the drama triangle, without playing victim, without blaming others, without trying to rescue everyone. You need to be able to engage in those difficult conversations. And we all have something right now, a conversation that we're avoiding having. In my head, I can think of a conversation right now that I haven't had that I'm like, oh, I got to have that conversation, right? Someone in my business. You're probably the same way. Maybe it's someone on your team. Maybe it's with a client. Maybe it's with a colleague. Whatever it is, we all have those difficult conversations. That's how we move forward, by engaging in that conflict responsibly, being in full control of or not full control, but effectively managing our emotions. The next level after that is 100K to 300K. So in my Altitude Mastermind, a lot of people, they came in making 10K. Now they're at 100K a month. And now, since we're getting ready to do another enrollment period in October, now they're going to have to start focusing on the next thing, because everything they've been focusing on now to get to 100K needs to shift in order to get to the very next level. They're going to have new things to focus on. They're going to have new mistakes that they want to avoid and new mental traps to avoid. So the mental trap that I see a lot at this stage is people are terrified to let go of control. And they're scared to let go of control. And sometimes it goes like one way or the other. So either they totally let go of control. Someone's in their business, maybe it's an integrator, maybe it's an OBM or whatever it is. And they just hand it over to them and they're like, okay, see you later. Good luck, right? Because they're exhausted, they're checked out, because they don't have a structure in place for what it takes in order to go from 100K per month to 300K per month. They don't know what that is. Of course they don't, because they haven't experienced it yet, right? That's the whole point of learning from someone who has already done this, so that you can then ask them, well, what am I supposed to do now? They can help you look out for that. The second thing that a lot of people fall into this mental trap of is, how do I know if my team is ready to lead? If you're at the 100K per month mark and you're trying to get to 300K per month, you need to have a leadership team. You can't just have random contractors. You need to have people in there. You need to really start investing in and developing their leadership. And it can't just be an integrator. It can't just be an online business manager. You have to have a team of people, right? You have to start making sure you have department directors and all of that kind of thing. And the third thing that a lot of people start to fall into, the mental traps, is they're trying to figure out, how do I simultaneously fix all of the problems in my business and continue to grow the company? What you need to prioritize changes. What you need to prioritize changes between what you're doing in order to get from 10K to 100K and then to go from 100K to 300K per month. Your priorities shift. And if you're still making those old things a priority, that's not going to help you move forward. Where to focus? Number one, you need to make sure that you're building out your leadership team. Number two, you want to make sure that you are really investing in creating a team culture. You want to create a place where people love to work, right? You want to create a place, it's no longer, yes, you're still focused on creating a great client experience, but you start to build something where your employees are taking care of the clients. Your company is taking care of the clients. So that means you need to take care of your employees. You need to really start to think about, what kind of company culture do I want to have here? What are my core values? What's important to me? What is a non-negotiable? And you have to have that in place, because that's the best way that you can really start to scale your decision making, because you cannot be involved in every single decision that happens in your business. You have to be able to train the people in your company to think the way that you think, so that they are able to make decisions through the same filter that you make decisions. The third thing is that you really need to clarify your vision. A lot of people get to 100K per month and they don't know what to do. It's almost like they feel like they were sleeping and then someone threw a bucket of cold water on their face, and all of a sudden they're like awake and they're like, what's going on? What happened? I'm making 100K per month. What's going on here? They're not clear on where they want to go. Also normal. And it doesn't mean anything bad, because guess what? You had to make a vision to get where you are now to 100K per month. But now that vision has to shift and change, and it needs to be further clarified. And once you have that, then you can start to plan a strategy to get to where you want to go. You're not clear on exactly where you want to go, you're never going to get there. That's the first step. Where do I want to go? That's the very first step. Critical mistakes to avoid. The first one at this income level is not creating an environment for your team to thrive. And this kind of comes back to team culture. Do you have a team culture of psychological safety? Do people feel comfortable giving feedback to each other and to you? Do you lose your temper? Do you lose your cool in meetings? And people are afraid. People don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. I know you've probably seen that quote a million times before, but it's true. People don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. If you want to be able to attract and retain a team of high performers, you've got to make sure that you are creating an environment where they can thrive. And the second thing is not letting go and getting out of the way. You need to, and this is where it gets really tricky, you need to sometimes see the team about to make a mistake and let them make that mistake. And you want to let them make the mistake because it's their mistake to make. They have to learn. They're not going to learn if you're constantly like micromanaging them, do this, do that, oh, don't do this, whatever. They have to learn. And so if you are in this micromanaging place, if you are not letting go, you think you're helping, but you're actually in the way. I used to do this all the time. I would always be like, I would just be in Slack all the time messaging people and be like, oh, do you need help with this? Do you need help with that? And they're like, oh my God, go away. This is so annoying. You have to learn how to do that. And the very last thing is not taking responsibility. And I would even put this at each of the income levels. It's all about personal responsibility. If we want to get somewhere, it's up to us to get there. It's up to us to do it, right? Nobody is going to do that for us. And so in order to do that, in order to get to that 300K per month level, you want to make sure that you're building out your leadership team, creating a team culture, clarifying the vision, and you want to proceed to the next level after you've been able to generate 300K per month consistently. And so there's stuff at every single level of success. And what you don't want to do is to find yourself in a situation where you keep going back to the other level. And if you're going back, it's because you haven't done everything that you need to do at that level, right? You haven't taken the time to automate leads and sales. You haven't taken the time to clarify your offer. You haven't taken your time to be visible. You need to make sure that you have that step one done before you come over to step two. Are you ready to get off the revenue roller coaster and start generating consistent, scalable income from your online course? Join me inside my signature program, Scale with Success, where you'll get the content, coaching, and community you need to successfully implement our proprietary sales and marketing methodology into your business, so you can start reaping the rewards of running a highly profitable online course business. Scale with Success is a 12-month group coaching experience exclusively created for online course creators who are ready to transform their business into a lean, mean, scaling machine. What are you waiting for? Click over to CaitlinBatcher.com and apply now.